Story 1. When I was growing up, my uncle owned a cabin in the middle of the woods up north. It was a small housing community, 50 houses, in the middle of the woods, meaning you had to drive 5 miles down a dirt road and then make a few smaller turns here and there. No signs or anything until you were in the community, so the only way to know it was there was if you owned property there. Every summer, we would spend a weekend there with my extended family. 20-30 people. We'd tent outdoors around the cabin and have a good old time. One game we liked to play was survival, which in hindsight was a terrible idea, but it was the 90s. They had dune buggies, so what we would do is the kids would team up into 2 teams. Each team would be blindfolded, driven down the back trails deeper into the woods, then led on foot even deeper into the woods. Sit in a circle, wait for the parents to start leaving in the dune buggy, and then once we heard them drive away, we could take off the blindfolds. The team who got home the fastest wins. As an added challenge, a white flag was previously hidden in the woods. So if you found the flag, you got half an hour shaved off your time. We were given a long-range walkie-talkie in case of emergencies. So here we are, a group of 5 cousins aged 5-15, I was the oldest, in the woods, with no idea how to get back to the cabin. Each team had one of my uncle's daughters who knew the woods, so it was harder than it sounds to get lost. But it has happened previously. The final time we ever played, the entire time we were in the woods, me and my cousin, who was a year younger than me, kept getting the heebie-jeebies. Normally we go for the flag because it's pretty easy, but this time we just both collectively felt the whole, nope, let's get the fuck out of here feeling. We made it back in record time, flagless. My uncle went to go get the flag after we left, and when he came back he was so upset. He pulled me and my cousin aside and sternly told us if we were playing a prank, we better tell him right now. We had no idea what he was talking about, so he told us that someone had moved the flag from one tree to another tree, so someone was possibly watching us. That night, everyone had to sleep in the cabin on the floor because they were scared someone may have followed us back. We could never play survival again. Years later, when we were older, we asked about it again. He went to the garage and came back with the flag which he had kept, along with this rusty old knife. He told us that it wasn't that someone just moved the flag, they stabbed it into another tree with this old knife, which had blood dripping onto the flag. Written on the flag in some marker said, "If you kids scream, I will gut you like a fish." Someone was out there. We're thankful we didn't try looking for the flag. Story 2. Exploring the grounds of a big old New England mental institution's campus at night. It's a full moon, but pitch is black inside because the windows are so dirty. Being dumb kids before smartphones, we didn't come prepared with a lot of light and were mostly navigating by 2 flashlights between our group and the moonlight when outside. We're in the main building, and most of it is what you'd expect. 60s, 70s decor, peeling paint, a couple of weird-looking chairs, and 2 legit rubber rooms. A movie had shot there at some point, so some of the walls are burnt from a stunt or something, I guess. There are 2 stairwells in the building on either end, and we have to keep alternating between them because there's stuff in the way. We keep going through the floors until we reach the roof. The roof doors are these big, heavy, metal, solid doors. The far stairwell door won't budge at all, so we go back down and try the other stairwell. This one we can see is kind of wedged open, and the top corner of the door is bent back, letting light in. We squeeze out onto the roof and walk around for a bit. I happened to be holding the flashlight and turned it back to the door. The door wasn't just bent. It was straight up, peeled back to open it like a tuna can. There were 3 huge scars that I can only describe as claw marks, each one as long as an adult's forearm. I lost my shit and insisted it was time to go. We made an expeditious retreat out of the building, but it was still a good 2-3 minute walk back to our cars, which was the most terrifying part of the night, ha. No idea what could have made those marks. Just really glad we didn't decide to go into some of the other buildings that were sealed up. You had to enter those through some underground tunnels, steam tunnels, I think. That connected the buildings, and the entrance was super sketchy. Story 3. My friends and I spent the whole winter of 2013 urban exploring, and it was incredible. But our last incident is what left us swearing to never do it again. It was 2 a.m. and we decided to hit the local abandoned asylum. Now this was a 20-acre complex, complete with its avenue and several different buildings. The road leading in was through a gate that was usually never open, but that night it was, and we were able to comfortably drive up to the field of grass facing one of the buildings. This is where we sat, our car completely shut off, in the dead of winter, just passing a bowl of weed back and forth. The building we were facing was the morgue, and we were a little ways off, but almost directly in line with the front door, which was closed. I remember the wind that night, so cold and loud, its whistle scratching our ears and blowing against the car. We were high school kids just enjoying the atmosphere, and it wasn't till our third bowl of weed that we realized the door of the morgue that was shut was now wide open. In an hour, someone had scampered through the field next to us, shimmied their way to the morgue, and snuck in without any one of us noticing. The realization that someone knew we were here, that we were being watched, and that someone had slipped past our noses threw us into a panic, and we decided to leave. My friend quietly started the car and reversed off the field of grass, back to the gate that we entered, only for us to realize someone had shut us in. So here we are, 3 high school kids, high off our asses, and our exit point completely sealed off. Now there was another exit way down the road, but we weren't thinking rationally at this point. It was no longer a game or a night out with the boys. Someone was here with us, and their moves were calculated, deliberate. We took a left and drove down the avenue, further into the complex, hoping to find an exit that we could squeeze through in our vehicle. The avenue led straight into the complex, and on each side was a different building. Everything was so empty, so abandoned, but that feeling of being watched stayed with us, and we couldn't shake the fact that we were being followed. The avenue eventually stopped at a dead end. To our left was the main building with a chained fence, and to our right was a grass field and a dirt road and a children's playground. We were stuck, and this is where we sat, completely vulnerable, our sides and back completely exposed. The place was so big, anyone could have been anywhere, and the building we sat across from was 13 floors, its architecture straight out of a horror movie. My friend decided to turn the car around and turn the lights on so we'd face the avenue we drove down. We rolled down our windows so we could see better and turned the radio slightly up to break the silence. It was almost like we were making a stand. In hindsight, it was a dumb fucking decision, but we didn't want to go further into the complex, and we didn't want to drive back, so we sat and waited. Knuckles gripping the steering wheel, our blood pressure rising, eyes glued to the road. Not even 5 minutes later, I swore I heard something and shut the radio off. Because we made a U-turn, the main building was to our right, and that's where I heard something. It sounded like a pop, one of those shitty firecrackers that you toss on the floor. I kept hearing that pop over and over from the top floor of the building that was supposed to be abandoned. The fence was padlocked, and there was no way anyone could get through that gate. But I swear to you, I heard the sizzling of the firecracker and the pop noise it would make when it hit the floor, over and over again. At this point, my friends and I are terrified. Was this a scare tactic? Are we supposed to leave? Suddenly, the firecrackers stopped, and the silence was almost deafening. For 1 minute, whoever was up there decided firecrackers weren't effective. The noise was immediately replaced by pots and pans banging together. Somewhere on the 12th floor, someone decided that banging pots and pans together in an abandoned complex at an ungodly hour was the right way to scare these high school kids. It was obvious. We're not wanted here. Someone is trying to get us to leave, but why close the gate? Why force us down to the dead end and let us sit there? All of these questions, but no answers. It was at this point that I told my friends we need to leave. If we have to ditch the car, then so be it. Whatever it is, we have to get the fuck out of here, and we have to do it now. I don't know if it was the adrenaline or the macho attitude, but my friend doubled down and said no, that we sit here and whoever is fucking with us comes out and talks to us. So homeboy decides to roll all of our windows down, blast the radio, and start screaming at the top of his lungs. It was childish, it was dangerous, and completely irrational. But my other friend and I were completely bewildered. Our efforts to calm him down only bolstered his efforts, and so we just let it happen. It wasn't until I saw headlights in our rearview mirror that I told my friend, "Let's fucking go." My friend didn't even look. He heard the panic in my voice and floored it. That little 2006 Mitsubishi held its weight that night, and so we sped down this broken avenue, no idea where to go, and this mystery car tailgating us the whole way. We were picking up speed and doing a clean 60 miles an hour, and this car was tailgating us the whole way through, and even trying to get in front of us, high-beaming us, honking, dangerously swerving, anything to get us to stop. I couldn't get the make or model of the car because it was dark, but we weren't taking any chances. We drove down the avenue and straight out of the complex. What we didn't know before was that the avenue eventually led out into the neighborhood it was situated in, and that the gate we had entered was merely a side entrance. Eventually, the car behind us tapered off, and once we were a couple of miles away, lost in the side streets, my friend pulled over, and we sat there processing what just happened. What was so unnerving about the whole situation? If there was a cop or security guard, wouldn't they have just announced their presence and told us to leave? What was opening the door of the morgue, following us, and using scare tactics all about? Where the fuck did the sedan come from? The dangerous driving, almost forcing us off the road. All of that seemed so fanatical. Was this just a sick game someone was playing on us? A prank to scare some trespassing high school kids? I wish I had the answers, but we never found out. Story 4. Decided to solo mission an abandoned church. Dropped down through a window into the basement. After wandering through some hallways, I found a large room with the stairs to the main level at the other end. Started crossing the room when I heard footsteps above me. It sounded like somebody walking with crutches or a peg leg making a weird thunk, 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 thunk. The steps seemed to be going in a circle. I paused for a minute. I'd had run-ins with homeless people before that were generally amiable. I'd make small talk for a minute, give them smoke and some change, and everything would be copacetic. I wasn't normally scared to run into them. This time, I had a weird bad feeling. After hesitating, I took a couple more steps toward the stairs. I was so focused on the noise above me that I accidentally kicked an empty spray paint can, which clattered away along the floor. The footsteps above me stopped for a moment. Then whatever it was began running, still making that thunk-thunk, towards the stairs. I was about to start climbing. I was suddenly more terrified than I have ever been in my life. I sprinted full tilt back toward the window I'd come through as whatever it began, running down the stairs, and somehow managed to quickly claw my way up and out. I didn't look back until I was safely out of the building, at which point I could neither hear nor see anything. I waited outside for a few minutes, but apparently, whoever it was, had decided scaring me off was good enough and had retreated into the building. Slightly spooky epilogue. About 3 weeks later, I went back with a couple of friends. We made our way into the building and up the stairs without incident. Inside the church, we found obvious evidence of multiple homeless persons living there. There were mattresses set up in corners, some small fires had been lit, etc. Most of it was fairly normal. However, on the windowsills, we found multiple birds and small mammals, all of which had been beheaded and their bodies carefully lined up. After perusing and photographing the main sanctuary, I and one friend made our way up to the 3rd floor, which had classrooms and offices. Coming up the stairs, I could see the door to a room off the landing at the very top. As I got to the last few stairs, the door abruptly slammed shut. The room had been dark and didn't appear to have any windows, and I couldn't feel a breeze or see any open windows looking down the hallway from the top of the stairs that could have pulled the door shut. My friend tried to open the door and said that it felt like there was something on the other side pushing it shut. We elected not to explore the third floor, and after going downstairs and consulting with our other friend, it was decided we should leave. About 3 years later, I revisited that church, and when I came to the top of the stairs, I found the door to that room wide open. Shining my flashlight in, I confirmed that the room had no windows. That church is fairly well known in the local exploring community, and while several people have said they got a bad feeling or felt crept out there, nobody else has had any kinds of encounters. I assume the first incident was a homeless resident trying to scare me off. The dead animals were the work of an unmedicated schizophrenic, and the slamming door was a homeless person not wanting his nap high, disturbed by some dumb kids. That said, the whole experience was hair-raising, and I still bring it up as an anecdote for new explorers on why you should never explore alone. Story 5, I went to Greystone Asylum in New Jersey before it was demolished. Absolutely beautiful architecture, BTW, for anyone who hasn't seen it before. Highly recommend you Google a picture. Anyway, after gaining access to the building, we found the lights were still on. Weird, considering the building had been abandoned for so long. We just looked around the area checking things out. The place reminds me of the Resident Evil 2 police station. We got to the top of the main building where the chapel is located, and everything is pristine except for the fact that the enormous cross behind the pulpit is upside down. Okay, a bit weird, but people have to have done that before. That's when we start seeing and hearing things. Hallways we had passed coming up are now dark. You can hear things scuttling about in the darkness. Just mice or raccoons or something, we told ourselves. Then we decided to explore lower into the building. So to preface, there's a series of underground tunnels that were used to transport the more violent patients from one of the satellite buildings to the main building for doctor's appointments, etc. At the entrance to the underground transport tunnels, the air grows colder even though it's June. We're underground, of course, it is. No lights are leading down this barren concrete pathway, only the inky darkness in front of us that our flashlights can't even seem to penetrate. As the path begins to gently curve, we begin to see a glow of light ahead of us. As we approach, this is the first light we've seen down here yet, besides our flashlights. It's coming from a room set off from the transport corridor, maybe an office or storage area. We decide to see what's inside. The room is completely devoid of anything except a thick coating of dust on the bare concrete. In the middle of the room, the light we noticed was coming from an ordinary table lamp set on the floor. It wasn't until we noticed the lamp wasn't plugged into anything that we decided to get the hell out of there. Story 6. There's a place in Liverpool, UK called Mossley Manor, a stunning old nursing home. Inside, it's being left to rot, but there are lots left behind. Pictures, files on residents. The place was shut down over cruelty to the residents. In fact, one of the files I read discussed how police were called over a resident as paramedics arrived at them having passed, yet staff said they died in the ambulance. Anyway, I know this place inside and out. It's a beautiful building with a horrible history. It's fantastic for photos and digging into its past. I would go once a week and bring friends, teach them how to respect history. One day, I had a feeling. I'm not a huge paranormal believer, but I had that feeling. Something was watching me. What? I don't know. But I felt it had always been there. Like it allowed me to feel confident before, so it could get me now. What would it do to me? Fuck knows. But I've never been back. I have a friend who is into his spooky memes. He was giving me some shite about negative energy manifesting into a poltergeist. He could be right. I would rather not know. Story 7. Kinda late, but might as well share since I've never bothered to write it all out before. Was exploring an abandoned school, half for the urbex side of things, and a half for the building, having a reputation for being super haunted. I live for that stuff, so win-win. I'm also not very easily scared when it comes to paranormal stuff, because 99.9% of it can be explained with normal logic. Anyways, though, I'm in the old theater auditorium of this school that's waiting to be condemned. And it's beautiful. In a very specific holes in the ceiling, walls, and floor, asbestos tiles crumbling everywhere, dusty light from the windows. Way, if that makes sense. Though I haven't fact-checked this, a girl died on the stage during a school play in the 50s or 60s after she tripped down the stairs from the catwalk and broke her neck. I knew her name at the time but can't remember it now. But what happened was that my spirit box said the correct name back to me after I climbed up on stage and asked if anyone was around. That's not the creepy part, just the part that got me excited and adventurous. I walked around a few floors of the building but kept avoiding the basement boiler. I had very bad vibes just walking past the stairs leading to it, but I'm curious to the core and went down there. I didn't turn the spirit box on because the static was super loud, and I wanted to try and get a quiet walkthrough video. I made it to the boiler room and there's a rusty chain blocking it off with a sign about asbestos and hazards, etc. I hopped over it. I was breathing that shit in the whole time anyway, so I didn't care about that. But for some reason, I knew that crossing that chain was a big deal and a bad idea. As soon as I'm through the doorway, I hear a loud laugh choke noise, like someone was trying not to laugh and hold their breath, but couldn't help it. I must have developed sonar at that moment, because I ran up the crumbling stairs in the pitch dark without a horror movie trip moment. But I felt the whole time like someone was right behind me, smiling and running, but just toying with me. I haven't gone exploring since then, and just thinking about it again makes my spine tingle, whether it was a living person or something else.
Thanks for watching. Don't leave before leaving a like to this video. Also hit the subscribe button to support my work. And as always, have a horrific nightmare, my dear.